Okay, welcome to the video. This is going to be parts of Chapter 9 and Chapter 10, which is heating systems and cooling systems, respectively. Okay, now why I combine these two is because the topic that I'm going to talk about is very, very similar. All right, and that is loads. Okay, what are loads? Well, when we talk about loads in other contexts, we think about something that is bearing down, right? Something that's borne, right? Borne as being, it has to be, you bear it. It is borne on your back, on your shoulder, and the stress of the house or whatever. Weight, generally speaking, right? But in heating and cooling, load is nothing more than objects or processes that take away heat or cooling. If I'm trying to heat a room, but there's something that's taking that heat away, okay, that is a heat load, right? If I am trying to cool a room and something is taking that cool away, trying to make it hotter, I'm trying to make it cooler, it's trying to make it hotter, that is a cooling load, all right? So there's two categories for each, and that would be internal and external, okay? So external is easy to explain, right? And first off, let me back up. Why do we care about loads? Why do we care about what is causing problems or what is taking away from our heat or taking away from our cooling? Because we have to design our heating source, right? We have to operate it the most effective way. And we understand our heat loads or our cooling loads, we can better operate our systems, okay? So what are some of the external loads? Well, external loads are obvious, right? If you're in upstate New York, in the lakes region where the wind comes across and it's colder than all get out, and you have the ice effect or lake effect snow and cold and all that other stuff, that is an external load. Right? It is much harder to heat that house than one maybe even just a couple hours away in the Hudson Valley where it's much more temperate, right? So those are loads, and when we're deciding on purchasing different systems, installing different systems, we need to understand those non-variable loads, right? And the fact that we're in upstate New York, we're always going to be in upstate New York. And so that is a load that we have to consider. Okay, so external loads can be the temperate zone that we're in. Shade, you're not getting sun, you're back to the sun, you get a mountain shade. So everybody wants to be on the mountain, but I've lived in mountains, and for a good part of the day, you're in the dark, right? Or in the shade, right? Almost in the dark because the sun drops way before it actually sets, okay? So that's a load, okay? So those are external heat loads. Internal heat loads, what's taking away heat? Okay, infiltration is one. And I'm going to get back into infiltration here in a second because that's going to cross over to cooling. But let's talk about that. What do we have inside that produces cold? All right? Generally not that much, right? A doorway, infiltration through the doorway, having an effective door, or having lots and lots of customers come in, right? That is a load, okay? And we have to deal with that, right? We have to understand it, okay? But some of the more ridiculous ones, and the fact that it's preventable, is people leaving the door to the walk-in open, right? Now, generally speaking, kitchens even in December are daggone hot. But let's just say it's not. Let's say it's just an afternoon and the ovens aren't fired or whatever, and people just leave coolers open and stuff like that, turn fans on when they're not supposed to be on, or all things like that. All right, that is a heat load. All right. Another internal heat load that people don't expect is a fireplace. Well, that's not taking away heat, that's producing heat. Very little, right? It's direct radiant heat, inefficient direct radiant heat. So you're getting that radiant heat maybe 10, 15 feet from the fireplace. That's it. At a cost of maybe 15% efficiency, meaning that 85% of the heat it produces, the energy that it uses to produce the heat, goes away. All right. So what does that mean? Well, it's just inefficient. How is that a load? I'll tell you how it's loaded. It increases your infiltration. All right. Infiltration being the process of air coming from outside to inside. Now, let me take a step back and say that not all infiltration is bad. Infiltration is necessary, right? An airtight house would be a death trap, right? You can't have an airtight house because we breathe in the air, we expel it, and becomes carbon monoxide or rich in carbon monoxide, or not monoxide, excuse me, dioxide. And eventually it will cause you to be sick, right? And those bacteria, or probably not bacteria, but viruses or little microscopic things that are you don't want breathing over and over and over again, infiltration causes those to cycle out, right? So not all infiltration is bad, but something like a fireplace creates an enormous amount of infiltration because it takes a huge amount of air. What fuels fire, right? Air is one of them, right? The three parts of the fire triangle is air, oxygen, air, fuel, and heat. All right. Now, it takes an enormous amount of air. So, and I'm telling you this to illustrate how infiltration, some just ineffective things, inefficient heating devices can be heat loads. Okay. So you have that fireplace. It's producing a pretty flame. You're getting about 20,000 BTUs 10 feet out, and ooh, that's great. But the rest of the place is freezing, and the heating system is working really hard because it's pulling cold air to feed the fire from every nook and cranny that it can. All right. So now some of you might never consider that. All right, and most people won't. All right. Now, why do I say it here? Because some of you might work at a ski lodge or a place in the North Country where when it's cold, a nice fire in the fireplace is what customers, clients, guests expect, right? So we have to do it, all right? But we have to also understand that it's a significant heat load, okay? So let's transition into cooling loads, all right? So cooling loads, same thing, internal, external. External, you're going to heat or cool a building in the desert without any shade, without any breeze, 120-degree infrared rays from the sun beating down on it. That's going to be cooled a lot more difficultly than even something with similar temperatures outside, but with shade, with a breeze, maybe an air movement coming from the ocean or something like that. That's going to have less of an external heat load. So we have to understand our climate. All right. Same with heating and cooling. We have to understand our climate. Okay. So that's external. Internal for heat or for cooling loads is much more obvious, especially in our industry, right? We have in the restaurant biz, we have a whole part, half of the restaurant or a third of the restaurant square footage is producing enormous amounts of heat to cook the food, right? The flat tops, the fryers, which are a huge load, ovens, all of those things, the stoves, the eyes or whatever, all of those things are significant heat loads, and it's very difficult to cool a kitchen, okay, effectively. But what are some that are not kitchens? All right, how about pieces of equipment that aren't intended to produce heat for the purpose of producing heat, but do it as a byproduct? Computers, right? Business center is going to be hotter than just a lounge without any TVs or anything in it, right? Server rooms are going to have significant cooling load. They are producing heat, okay? And then we also have the infiltration the same way. Outside air is coming in, it needs to come in, but with a cooling system, we control it and we cool it hot air as it comes in, okay? So that is your external or internal, external. Those are your internal cooling loads. So again, heating loads, cooling loads are things that make the job of the equipment that we're purchasing and using and operating to cool or heat harder. All right. And it's important for the manager to know these things, right? We can control some of these internal loads, right? Especially cooling loads. Well, we can control them to a point, right? We can try to keep, if it's a really hot day outside, don't turn on the ovens until you need to, conserving energy anyway. Things of that nature. We can control it to a point. But the bottom line is we have to understand that they exist in order to properly operate our heating and cooling systems. All right, so that's it on loads. And I also talked about infiltration, and hopefully I gave you a good illustration of that. All right, so we'll see you in the next video.